name's Tony Cordero, and today I am what's known as a Gold Star son. I am the now 60-year-old son of Major Bill Cordero, who was lost in the Vietnam War in 1965. And at that time, my mom and dad had 5 children. We were living in the Philippines. His Air Force B-57 was lost in Laos, and he and the pilot left behind 2 Gold Star wives and 7 Gold Star children. And so today, known as a Gold Star son, we grow up, and that's one of the most important messages that I could share with anyone, is that the Gold Star child that you see that presents this sympathetic image at a funeral, they grow up, and they don't stay 4 or 5 or 6 years old forever. They grow up and they become parents, they become grandparents, they go to college, they graduate, they have careers, they have ups and downs in life. And so I really encourage people to not limit the life of a Gold Star child to that sympathetic image, because that's just a snapshot. Life doesn't end there for us. It goes on forever. About a year ago, I had, with the inspiration of some Vietnam veterans that I have breakfast with every once in a while, I had an idea of creating a coin, a challenge coin, that would tell the story of my dad and his pilot and their final mission. It was a complex story, not something that's usually captured on a challenge coin, but we found a way to do it, and it indeed tells the story. The front of the coin talks about the mission of JADE 22 and that B-57 bombing mission over the Vietnam-Laos border. And then the back of the coin tells the story of the aftermath, where these 2 men, Charles Lovelace and William Cordero, are listed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and the names around them on that wall, the military decorations they received in their distinguished careers, and then 9 Gold Stars on this coin that represent the 2 Gold Star wives and the 7 Gold Star children who were left behind when those 2 American heroes didn't come home. As I approached an age where I was going to outlive my dad, I really was filled with lots of questions, and I wondered what life would be like, because at that time, America didn't know who we were. We didn't know who we were. And so in the late 1980s, a few years after the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated, I was asking myself questions about what life was going to be like going forward. And there wasn't an organization that took care of us as kids, that brought us together as children and took us to Disneyland, or had counseling sessions, or sent us a Christmas card wishing us well when we were growing up. We really, after the funeral was over and after that ceremony had concluded, we were just on the outside looking in. And so I started asking questions, and a Vietnam veteran in Sacramento, California told me, if there was an organization for you kids, I'd know about it, and I don't know about it. So he directed me to a woman in Washington, D.C. who was involved with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and she had lost her husband in the war. He was a naval aviator and was lost in the war as well. And she connected me with her daughter, and one thing led to another. And in the late 1980s, this movement that became known as Sons and Daughters in Touch was started. And at that time, America knew of Gold Star mothers, it knew of Gold Star wives, but it didn't know anything else. And it didn't know that there were 20,000 Gold Star children who lost their dads in the war. So we built this for us, by us, about us, and now 30 plus years later, we're still at it. And the focus today is a little bit different than it was back in the late 1980s. Then all we really wanted to do was to find each other and unite the Gold Star children whose dads were listed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Today, we still have that as our mission, but also we find ourselves partnering with older Gold Star families from World War II and Korea, mentoring younger Gold Star families in the post 9/11 era, being advocates for what is good and right and faithful to the Gold Star tradition, making sure that the tradition of America's Gold Star history is upheld and acknowledged, and recognizing that we have a role to play in the national conversation about what America's Gold Star tradition is. Again, in the late 1980s, a legendary Vietnam veteran from Sacramento, Mike Machine Gun Kelly, was the person I reached out to, and he said to me, he said, Tony, if there was an organization for you, I would know about it, and I don't know about it. And sadly, Mike pointed us in the right direction, but sadly, Mike took his own life, and is one of those statistics that is the tragic reality of the life of many American veterans today. So rest his soul, Mike pointed me in the right direction. I was 4 years old when my dad went on that final mission. He was at the end of his second tour of duty in Vietnam. He spent his first year, 1963 through 1964, with the Air Force Air Commandos, and was stationed at Benoit Air Base outside of Saigon. He actually got to Saigon the day that President Kennedy was killed. And a year later, we moved to Clark Air Base in the Philippines and joined him there. And he was at the end of that second tour of duty, after almost 100 combat missions, that he went on the final mission, Father's Day weekend in 1965, and didn't come home. But Mom and Dad had 4 children and 1 on the way, so there were 5 kids in our family, and the Lovelace family had 2 daughters. So altogether, 2 Gold Star wives, 7 Gold Star children, all impacted when that mission of Jade 22 ended tragically.
So you've been able to reconnect with the other children from that particular mission?
Yes, I am in contact with both of them. Met them a couple of times. They live in North Carolina, we live in California, but yeah, it's a unique part of so many tragic stories where a plane with a crew goes down, and in our case, our dads are buried together in Arlington, and so we're forever linked by that headstone and what lies beneath the soil there in Arlington.
Were they able to bring his body home immediately, or was this something that was repatriated years later?
It's a big controversy. When the plane was lost, nobody knew where they were. And the search and rescue efforts, as I've since learned, were completely wrong. They were looking in the wrong place. So they were missing in action for 4 years. So from June of 1965 through the early months of 1969, they were classified MIA. And then mysteriously, some remains in a box show up at the Saigon, or the mortuary, the Army mortuary in Saigon. And without DNA testing, they used deductive reasoning and other evidentiary tactics to conclude that it was indeed my dad and the pilot, but they were fragmentary remains, and we don't know who collected them, how they collected them, why they collected them, or where they collected them. But one of the smoking gun pieces of evidence was my dad's ID card. His military ID card survived the crash and somehow wound up in this. The speculation is that there were some special forces from some branches of service who were in the area of Laos, going through the jungle. They came across this crash site and said, we aren't supposed to be here, let's gather what we can and take it with us. And that's what wound up in the box at the cemetery, or the mortuary in Saigon. So the case was essentially closed at that point. They were buried in Arlington in May of '69, and everything was status quo until 1994. And in the late months of 1994, I was notified that the Joint Task Force for Full Accounting, the American investigation agency, part of the U.S. Army from Hawaii, had rediscovered the crash site. And it was in Laos, and there were major sections of the plane's wreckage that were in the jungles of Laos, and that they had recommended an excavation take place because the experts who discovered that crash site, not knowing the full story, they looked at this and said this crash site needs to be excavated because there is a likelihood that remains are still here. So since '94, we've been fighting to have that excavation take place, and if there are remains of Charles Lovelace and Bill Cordero there, they need to be brought back home to be reunited with the remains that are already here.
And are you working with the DPAA on this?
Yeah, it's an exception case. It's a little bit unique. There aren't many cases like this, but we're working with DPAA on that.
Nice. Have you been over to Vietnam or Laos?
Been to both. In the year 2000, on Father's Day 2000, we were at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Sons and Daughters in Touch was having a Father's Day gathering, and something just grabbed me, and I spit out some words that I didn't know I was going to say, but I did. And I said to those in attendance that the time was right. The world was at a degree of relative peace and tranquility. I said the time is right for us. The time is right for us to go to Vietnam and to see the places where our dads died. That was June of 2000. 250 people wanted to go. 250 Gold Star sons and daughters said, I want to go. 9/11 happens. Planning for the trip takes a lot longer than we anticipated. The cost gets expensive. But in March of 2003, 50 Gold Star sons and daughters went to Vietnam in a Gold Star pilgrimage that was historic. And we landed in Saigon. When the plane touched down, the back of the jet erupts into applause because we think we're here, we're in Vietnam. And so for a couple days we got acclimated in Saigon, and then the groups of folks on the trip broke into little smaller groups depending on where their fathers had been lost. They flew here, they flew there, they flew throughout the country to go and literally stand in those places where their dads took their last breaths. And then we all got back together at Hue City. From there, went to China Beach for a couple days of R&R to literally relax after an emotionally taxing experience. Then we went to Hanoi, and 18 days later we came back home and landed in LA the day that the war in Iraq broke out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was a Gold Star pilgrimage that we didn't realize was in the same tradition as these Gold Star pilgrimages from the 1930s, when Gold Star mothers and Gold Star wives were put on cruise ships and they sailed from New York to Paris so that they could see the final resting places of their sons and husbands from World War I. And I think that's one of the compelling reasons why we are so defensive of the Gold Star tradition, because we have lived that history, we're part of the history, and 20 years ago, in 2003, we did our own Gold Star pilgrimage, still the largest Gold Star family's trip to Vietnam that ever took place, and we're proud of it and defensive of the history of the Gold Star legacy.
I should say, do you work with Ann Mills Griffin?
We do. A number of the members of Sons and Daughters in Touch are still working to have their fathers' cases resolved, and so the National League of POW MIA Families, a very integral part of Sons and Daughters in Touch. About 5% of our members are still MIA families, if you will, working to get resolution to the fates of their fathers.
And how many members would you say you have in SDIT?
We have reached almost 5,000. We think there's 20,000 of us that were left fatherless at the end of the war. The difficulty is there's no database. There's no easy way to identify who the 20,000 are or where they were at the time that the war ended. So we just have to rely on word of mouth and social media to help us find them. We find some. We're at a point in life where we lose some. Some of the folks that went on that trip with us to Vietnam have since passed away. life happens.
Where would someone go reach out if they're watching this and saying, I want to connect with this group?
You can find us on Facebook at Sons and Daughters in Touch, or on the internet at SDIT, Sierra Delta Ida Tango.org, on Instagram at Sons and Daughters in Touch. We have our own YouTube channel with a bunch of historic videos and news stories over the last 30 plus years. And we just started a LinkedIn page to summarize some of our advocacy efforts, because for some reason today, there's a lot of legislative issues that affect us, and we're making sure that our voice is known.
Good to hear. Strong work. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add?
What would I say?
You want to say anything to your dad?
You know, the hard part for me has been that because of my role, sometimes I have to stop and remember that I'm his son. And I'll put on the hat to be his son sometimes and take it off to be the advocate for all Gold Star families and the tradition that represents. And so it's a journey, and I think the beauty of what Sons and Daughters in Touch has accomplished over 30 plus years is that we've done it as a volunteer effort. It's been done by us, for us, about us. When we were established, there were no other organizations for us. You had Gold Star Mothers and Gold Star Wives, but there was nothing for Gold Star children, whether it was from World War II or from the Korean War or the Vietnam War at that time. And it's a sense of pride that after we got started, a couple years later, the World War II Gold Star Sons and Daughters started their own organization because they saw the same need for themselves. Those folks are now in their late 70s and 80s, and it's another example of what happens. The Gold Star families grow up, they live lives, and today when you look around, you see there are so many organizations supporting Gold Star families and providing them with such attention and care. And the beauty of all of that is that the generosity and support that they receive today is because of the lessons learned of what wasn't provided to the Gold Star families from World War II, from Korea, and from Vietnam. So we think that's a great learning lesson. We're pleased to see that that's happened, and we support it 100%. We're still very loyal and dedicated and faithful to the Gold Star tradition, and proud to see that the attention that's being paid to Gold Star families today is a great lesson learned. It is. It's a much larger audience, but it's important to know that 90% of all of America's Gold Star families are from pre-9/11. 90% of us come from the few who are still alive from World War I, 185,000 Gold Star sons and daughters from World War II, probably 15 to 20,000 from the Korean War, and then another 20,000 from the Vietnam War. So those are just the sons and daughters, but 90% of all of America's Gold Star families are from pre-9/11. My dad in our California history is something that we're very proud of. Our ancestors came here and helped found the California missions long ago, and to some that may be controversial, but it's a sense of pride for us. My dad was the first in his family to go to college. His father was an 8th grade educated blacksmith from Santa Barbara, and he came from a broken family. His mom and dad were divorced, but he found a way to get a ROTC scholarship to Loyola University here in Los Angeles, and then made it a career. Married an Irish girl, so you had a Hispanic husband and an Irish wife, and they were setting out on their dream life. They wanted to be the officer and his wife and live that life, and it was interrupted by the war. So we're here and we're doing okay. Not been without challenges, but we're doing okay, and we're proud of him, and he's probably proud of all of us for doing what we've done in our lives.
No doubt. And how important would you say it is for the sons and daughters to connect with each other?
It's unique because each one of us, regardless of when our dad was lost in the war or which branch of the war they served in, we can look at each other and know that we traveled that same journey. And there's a camaraderie that comes with it. Our organization has resulted in lifelong friendships and partnerships that just could not have been the case without Sons and Daughters in Touch, and I hope that younger Gold Star families get that same benefit as their lives progress on. We're proud to look at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and know that our dads served in every branch, at every rank, from the most entry-level ranks all the way up to generals in the military. They served in every year of the war, in every battle of the war, and they're represented on every panel of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. In the year 2019, Congress passed a bill, was signed by the president, that established the Congressional Gold Star Families Fellows Act. And it created an opportunity that has been a tremendous opportunity for the Gold Star Sons and Daughters of our organization. What the bill did was create job opportunities for Gold Star families to serve as staff members for any of the 435 members in the House of Representatives. And I'm proud to say that right now there are 4 of our members in their 50s and 60s who are serving in these fellowship positions in Congress. When the bill was created and signed into law, I don't think they anticipated that the Gold Star Sons and Daughters from the Vietnam War would have an attraction to this opportunity. But it was a benefit that had never been offered to us before. Remember, when we aged out and lost our on-base benefits, we had no connection to the military. Nobody knew who we were. The military really didn't do much to take care of us. And yet in 2019, at this point in our lives, here's an opportunity for them to go back, to take advantage of a benefit for Gold Star families, and to serve in Congress, to help congressional members with whatever needs they have, whether they're for Gold Star families or any other constituent service. And right now we have 4, and hopefully we'll have more, but it is a great, great opportunity for our members. We're very proud of them, and I know that the managers of the program are very surprised that the Gold Star Sons and Daughters from the Vietnam War want in on this opportunity.